You are Locked On Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
Well, it was a tough day at the ballpark for the Braves, and they now find themselves once again trying to find a way to get out of town, having not lost a series on this road trip. The best they can do here in New York, though, is settle for a split after being swept in a doubleheader by the Mets. I'm Grant McAuley. He's Jake Mastroianni. This is a Locked On Braves postcast, part of the all-new Locked On Sports Atlanta. We're glad you're joining us for this, even though the news from the yard today is not the best. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button here on YouTube, and make sure you click the bell to get all the notifications every time we drop a new episode here on the YouTube channel. And make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. You'll get every episode of this postcast. You'll also get all the great stuff Jake has for you all season long. So with that out of the way, Jake, while we do want to talk about the Braves all season long, and we do look forward to those days where you get to kind of revel in all the things that went right, this was a day that not only did things go wrong for the Atlanta Braves, it went wrong not once but twice because they got swept in this doubleheader. And I keep coming back to this old baseball adage where it's early until it's not. And this, I think, is on display in a series like this against a first-place team like the Mets that has played so well. And as the Braves go through the course of the rest of their season and they match up with the Mets, 15, 16 more times, you're still going to have to look back on some of these early season series and say, what if perhaps we'd done a little bit better there, right?
Absolutely. And we talked about it, the easy schedule that the Braves have had out of the gate, dropping series to the Marlins, the Nationals, splitting with the Reds, who only have 3 wins on this year, and 2 of them are against the Braves, losing that series to the Rangers. Series like that, yes, you're going to look back on. But this one in particular, like you said, against your division rival, you win the first game. You got 2 of your good starters going in a doubleheader. You have to win one of those games. Yep. And good teams will at least split that series. And the Braves just aren't a good team right now. And we're going to keep saying right now as long as we can. I still believe in this team, but right now they just are not consistently playing good baseball.
Yeah, I mean, right now is the label you have to put on it as the Braves have turned the calendar to the month of May. You were hoping that as they went out on a road trip against a struggling Rangers club that they'd find an opportunity to grab a much-needed series win to have that momentum going into the Mets series. Well, they didn't get that. But then Max Fried came out, fired a gem. Travis d'Arnaud haunted his old club in the opener, and the Braves grabbed the first of the 4 games to be played. And as we talked about, Jake, not even 24 hours ago, if you just split the doubleheader, you guarantee yourself a series split. You're not going to leave New York any worse off than you came in, and that's called damage control. But now at this point, you're going to be sending Ian Anderson to the mound in the 4th game, trying to salvage that split and hoping that your first entree into battling this new look New York Mets team is not going to be one in which you lose, a couple of games in the standings, because that's how the math quite simply works out. When you're handling or when you're dealing with clubs head to head in your division, every one of these losses is a full game in the standings. And that's the kind of missed opportunity I feel like that the Braves down the road would wish that they had been able to take advantage of, or at the very least to mitigate some of the early damage that they could suffer should they lose this series, which, let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's just not a great day at the ballpark that has you feeling really good about what this Braves team can do, particularly because what the offense could not do on this day. And let's talk a little bit about both of these games and what went on, of course, in chronological order. Both of them losses. Braves dropped to 11-14 and losing the opener of the series, or opener of this doubleheader, rather. 4 runs on 5 hits, couple of errors, left 6 men on base. The Mets 17-8 with their win, 5 runs on 7 hits, an error, 6 men left on. David Peterson was the winner. Charlie Morton, the loser. Edwin Diaz locked it down, got the save for the Mets. Let's talk a little bit about Charlie Morton for a moment. Early on, it felt like this is the same kind of problem that Charlie's still trying to work, like some kind of Rubik's Cube. He's not getting all the swings and misses that he would like to have. He's not piling up the strikeouts. A lot of soft contact in this game. That's a word I saw quite a few times on Twitter when discussing how the Mets were attacking Charlie Morton. And maybe that's a positive. Maybe how he finished the start was a bit of a positive. But overall, a day at the ballpark where Charlie Morton, I'm sure, doesn't leave feeling like he gave his team the best chance to win.
Yeah, but for me, this was actually a positive in the game for the Braves because Charlie Morton looks like he is back. In those last 3+ innings there, he looked much more like the Charlie Morton we're accustomed to seeing. And, I hated how he has to go through that and go through the struggles in the early innings. Look, if the Braves defense holds up here, he only gives up 2 runs in this game.
I agree.
If Ozzy Albies goes to first base on that play in the second, if Travis d'Arnaud doesn't throw a ball into center, or if Ozzy just blocks it and keeps it in front, those are 3 runs right there. And we're looking at this chart start and saying, okay, Charlie Morton's got a quality start here. Charlie Morton is rolling. So this was actually a positive for me in this game, that Charlie Morton looks like he found something, and hopefully that will continue and we start to see that going forward.
Yeah, listen to Charlie talk about his start afterwards, and he's the always introspective Charlie Morton. You're not getting 90 seconds from him on his start, much like the Braves postcast. We're really going to talk about it in detail. That's how Charlie approaches his starts, and he didn't sound like he was necessarily much further down like he was after his last couple of starts, or really taking a whole lot out of it. But he did say, "I'm having to kind of reimagine and remix my arsenal a bit and use more changeups, and I'm not getting the swings and misses I'm accustomed to." Hopefully, as he goes forward and gets in and around the strike zone a lot more, he'll start to get hitters to do what they have done for so many years, and that's not be able to handle that dynamic curveball that he backs up with that mid-90s fastball. We didn't see as much of that in terms of the strikeouts, but 5 2/3 innings, 6 hits, 5 runs, 4 of them earned. But as Jake mentioned, some misplays behind Charlie certainly didn't help him out, and it didn't set the Braves up for success either. 3 walks and 3 punch-outs. Jesse Chavez covered the rest of the game. 2 1/3 innings of scoreless relief from him. He's been a nice pickup from the Cubs, and we can talk about the bullpen and perhaps a little bit more on a different day, but Jesse has done quite a lot since coming over. Here's a positive out of this game. That's Matt Olson. He snapped a 58 at-bat homerless streak with a 3-run bomb that got the Braves back in the game. Unfortunately, 5-4 is as close as it was going to get. But as you look at what Olson did in game 2, and then, in game 1, and then again in game 2, the homer, the 3 runs knocked in, couple of walks, and then a couple of doubles in the nightcap. Perhaps we're seeing Matt Olson start to turn the corner after what's been a very slow couple of weeks for him, Jake.
Yeah. I mean, and again, there were some good, some good things that came out of these 2 games. When you just dive into the individual performances, and one of those definitely is Matt Olson and the guy in front of him as well in the second game that I'm sure we'll talk about. But seeing Matt Olson hit that home run, I think that was just a big, weight off his shoulder, and then you kind of just saw him relax in that second game. But getting him going and getting Ronald going, and Ronald hit the ball obviously very well in that second game, is huge for this lineup. Now we just got to get them doing it the same time through the order. It seemed like in that second game, Ronald got on and then Olson didn't get a hit, and vice versa. And again, I know we'll get into the timely hitting as well, but yeah, great to see Matt Olson get going. That 3-run homer, that was huge. Love to see that. Thought it was going to lead to another great Braves comeback, but unfortunately it did not.
Yeah, we haven't seen those Braves comebacks like we have the past few years. That's been a hallmark of this club is, they may go down a couple of runs early, but all of a sudden, in the middle innings, they've started to work up the pitch count of the opposing pitcher. They get him out of the game. They get into somebody's bullpen. They exploit a weakness. They put a crooked number on the board a time or two, and they climb back into these games. But we haven't been seeing that as much, and that quite simply did not work in game 2 against the Mets. And we'll get to that one in just a moment. Before we do, though, this episode brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. There's amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car or truck will ever need at rockauto.com. As far as game 2 was concerned, a little bit of a different story. The Braves, runners in scoring position. We've talked about it a time or 12, it feels like, on the season, Jake. The hits are not coming when the Braves need them in those key moments. Hence, we're not seeing a lot of those big comebacks. Braves shut out on 7 hits, left 7 men on base, and dropping to 11-15 on the season. Mets improved to 18-8 with just 3 runs, 9 hits, no errors, 5 men left aboard. As Carlos Carrasco had the Braves handcuffed late into the game. Kyle Wright, he did a pretty nice job overall. Got jumped for a couple of runs in the first inning. Gave up a home run to Pete Alonso a little bit later on. But, I really looked at Kyle Wright in this one, and much like when we were talking about, he had to kind of work through that start where things weren't quite all going his way. He didn't have his full arsenal. I liked seeing him gut his way through 7 innings and 1 walk, only 3 strikeouts. He did allow 9 hits, but he found a way to navigate through the Mets lineup, give his team a chance to win. Unfortunately, as we'll talk about once we're done with Kyle Wright, the offense did not give Kyle Wright a chance to win this game.
Yeah, pitching was not the problem in these 2 games. Even the first game, the offense was clearly lacking on both of these games today. I mean, you're facing David Peterson, a guy that just gave up, 8 runs at a AAA start, and you're not able to really get to him until, later in the game. And then you can't get anything against Carlos Carrasco, who gave up, I believe, 7 or 8 runs in his last
Yeah,
start.
against the Cards.
These two games are clearly on the offense. Kyle Wright, just another step forward in his maturation process as well. Like you said, got hit pretty hard in this game. I think it's the hardest he's been hit all year. Average exit velocity against at around 87 miles per hour, which still is not bad.
No.
But like you said, able to navigate, get out of those jams, get out of those situations. So that's great for him. And yeah, I mean, he did enough. I think he and what Charlie did in that first game, I know we already talked about it, but just giving the Braves innings, keeping them in that pitching wasn't a problem. I thought Charlie and Kyle both did a great job on Tuesday.
Yeah, I agree with that. And look, even in kind of looking at the Charlie Morton start, kind of introspectively, to use that word again, much like Charlie Morton does, is it the standard that he would like to be setting? No, but it did give the Braves enough of a chance. The defense didn't help him out in that game. The offense really didn't help him out enough in that one, but the offense went ice cold in the second game. How cold, you might ask? Well, 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position. Lots of strikeouts for the Braves in this game as well. On this doubleheader day as well, and just not being able to get a runner on, even runners in scoring position. You mentioned Ronald Acuna Jr. I mean, he doubled to lead off this game and was unable to be brought around to score. Matt Olson had a couple of hits in this one, 2 doubles for him. Ozzie Albies a couple of hits. Acuna 1 for 3 with a walk, but it felt like every time the Braves got a runner on, even with the doubles that they got, that man was left at third base by the time the inning was over, and it seemed to go pretty quick as Carlos Carrasco was getting the swings and misses and getting a lot of weak contact himself.
Yeah, and that's this offense, and it's been this way for 2+ years.
Mhm.
And you just have to trust the process. They're waiting on the 3-run homer. They're not a team that's going to string a lot of hits together. And when they're rolling and they're getting those home runs, then it's a fun offense to watch. The funnest, one of the funnest in baseball. But when it's not, and it's like this right now, it's highly frustrating to watch because they're not a team that's going to do most of the time like Travis did on Monday and just poke a ball into right field. They're not that type of lineup up and down, especially not consistency wise. So, that's, you got to live and die by it. The Braves just won a World Series doing it. You look at all the big home runs they got in the World Series. They're more than capable of doing it. But when that 3-run homer isn't coming, and they even got it in the first game, but it just wasn't enough because of the errors, it's a frustrating offense to watch because they're just not able to string those hits together. And you even heard Snitker talk about it. While the home runs are good and you live with the strikeouts when those are coming, he would rather have an offense that can string hits together and continue to put up, crooked numbers, keep the line moving. This offense just doesn't do that.
No, and this is kind of the DNA of some of these hitters that you have in here. There's just a lot of swing and miss in some of the games, particularly Adam Duvall, not to pick on him, and just in particular, Dansby Swanson clearly has had a lot of strikeouts this year, more so than at any point in his career. And, strikeouts are kind of part of the game right now. It's evolved into a manner in which pitchers are throwing harder and you're seeing more different arms. I mean, there's a whole host of reasons that we could waste all night talking about as to why and how the game has changed. But I'll bring it all back to this and kind of hit on the point that you made. The Braves are a club that at their best, it's pitching, defense, and timely hitting. Yeah, some of those timely hits are home runs. Yes, they can hit a whole bunch of those home runs. But when those 3 things are together or are happening in sync, then you've got a chance to see the Braves reel off a bunch of series wins, go on a hot streak where they win 7, 8 games in a row. And maybe one of those is around the corner at some point, but it just doesn't feel a whole lot like that is in the offing for the Braves right now, particularly on a day in which they lose not 1 but 2 games to the first place New York Mets, who as of right now are living up to the billing against every challenge that they have had thus far over the first month and a couple of days of the 2022 season. Now, there is one more game to get to. Game 4 of this series will be happening on Wednesday afternoon. We'll get you set up for that in just a moment. Before we do, I want to let you know LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/locked on MLB. That's locked in, excuse me. That's linkedin.com/locked on MLB to post your job for free. Terms and conditions applied. So with that tongue twister out of the way, let's focus on game 4. It's Ian Anderson on the mound against the New York Mets in the afternoon against Tyler McGill, who quite honestly has been perhaps the Mets' best pitcher. This is going to be another big challenge for this Braves offense, Jake.
It will be. And it's a lot of pressure now on the Braves and on Ian Anderson to win this game and get out of here with a split, which coming in, I would have been perfectly fine with. But with how the series plays out, it wouldn't feel quite as good. But still, I think, you get a win on the final game, you get a split, get out of there, come back home. You can live with that. But it does put a lot of pressure on Ian Anderson to have a good game, and he's been better lately. But again, it comes down to this offense. Can they get going? Can they put some runs up on the board? And they'll have to do that against a tough pitcher who, has pitched, like you said, well all year long.
Yeah, the Braves had another big strikeout game in the first contest, and that was against David Peterson, a guy who hadn't pitched altogether that well. But Tyler McGill thus far has, again, been a tough customer for anybody he's faced. He's 4-0, a 1.93 ERA. Ian Anderson, 2-1, a 4.66 mark as he faces the Mets. 1:10 p.m. Eastern time is the first pitch at Citi Field. Game 4 against the Mets. Braves are looking to get out of town with a split at Citi Field. We thank you for joining us here on the Braves Postcast. As always, as part of the new Locked On Sports Atlanta, make sure you subscribe to the channel on YouTube and to Locked On Braves, wherever you get your podcast. Tough day at the yard for the Braves as they lose not once but twice, 5-4 in Game 1 of the doubleheader, 3-0 in the nightcap as the Mets take both the games on Tuesday. Braves, though, will have another chance to jump back in the win column as they face New York behind Ian Anderson on Wednesday afternoon at 1:10. We look forward to talking to you again soon here on the Braves Postcast. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley, and we will talk to you soon. So long, everyone.